This is a demonstration of the operation of a positive pressure manifold. To start with, initially, is to plug in your gas source. All the connections associated with this are a quick connect, which means they're as simple as pushing it in and it catches automatically. It's recommended that in any of these you use a filter so that if there's any particulates in any of your gases, it doesn't get into the entire system. So the way it's set up right now is that it's a gas source where it could be nitrogen or air. It's usually at a pressure of about 80 to 120 psi's from the source. And it also can be adjusted, as I'll describe later in the operation of the manifold. But once the pressure is initiated, your quick connect will be in and it will not come out. On the back of this also is one switch. I'll describe this later, that this is the operation of the first row of the positive pressure manifold, but I just want to point it out now that it is in the back of the manifold. Right now the manifold is ready for operation. There's no electronics, it's all pneumatic. So essentially what you have in the front is the two dials that are for the regulated flow adjustment of the gas, or the high flow or the dry gas, and then the management toggle switches for the different rows. There's 4 rows of 12, total of 48 positions. They're all individually able to be controlled. So the general operation is, first, when you're putting a column together, you're going to be doing the extraction and you're going to use the waste tray. On the sides, if you notice that the handles for the waste tray are not centered. For it to fit properly on the manifold, you would have it more toward the front. So as you place this on the arms, the handles are going to be toward the front of the system. The plate then will fit on top, and it's pinned on both sides, and it can go either way. And once it sits on there, your system is essentially ready to add your cartridges. Now, for the sake of this demonstration, we're going to use 10 mil cartridges, and we'll be able to see how they just fit in any position. I'm going to use the second row right now. But you also have the option with the same plate, which is a 10 mil standard plate that comes with it, where there's optional adapters. In this particular case, there's 2 adapters that come in the kit, so you can adapt it to 1, 3, or 6 mil columns. In this case, this is an example of a 6 mil column. Both on the top and the bottom, they'll be attached. Then a 6 mil column will fit in. Should fit in. I have to edit this. Just as it did with the 10 mil columns. Okay? Now, operation of the system. Again, it's all pneumatics, no electronics. You're going to set your pressures appropriately. You'll set the regulated flow between 20 and 30 psi. And that's by pulling out, adjusting the flow until it reads between 20 and 30 psi. This is going to be dependent on the type of samples you're using, but in general, for all of the extractions, it will be fine to set it at 20 to 30. You can lock that into position then. On the other side is the full flow, which is used only for the dry or any of the high flow, and that'll be opened totally to the same pressure as it's in your gas source. In this case, it's probably close to 100 psi. I recommend using it at about 100 psi. So now the system. Operationally, the plate will be pushed back into position, and then to close and to start the pressure, we'll raise the arms, and now the plate is completely held, and each row is getting the same amount of gas, which means you have very uniform flow throughout the entire system. It's dependent on the matrix, obviously. You may have to adjust your flows, but in general, you'll get very uniform flow into each position. To lower it and to be able to maneuver the system, simply just use the raise and lower switch. Now, if we added a sample, for example, as I'm doing here. I chose the second row. I put 5 samples in. If I wanted to begin my extraction or begin to bring any sample or wash or anything through the column, the waste container is solid stainless steel, and it's innocuous to most of the acids or organics that you might be using. And it actually has a drain in the front. Right now for the demonstration it's plugged off, but this can also be tubed to a container that would collect your aqueous waste. It can also be transferred then if people were collecting the organic waste separately, or it can just be blocked and then you can collect all of your waste into this container. Now, to start it, and you slide it back. Again, we're raising, and at this point we have no pressure going through because the center toggle switch will actually be used to forward the gas into other directions. So if I'm using the toggle switch, I'm looking at the regulated flow. I simply just turn it toward the regulated flow. Now the gas flow is flowing through at the pressure that's dictated by the dial. In this case, I'm looking at the on and off switch because I'm using the second row. Once I turn the pressure on, we should start seeing flow. And now you can see that you get a uniform flow coming through. And if by chance you have to stop, you immediately can just hit the toggle switch. That'll stop all the pressures. That'll turn everything off. Also, if you wanted to lower or raise the gases, you can adjust it here, or you can turn it off from here. I wouldn't recommend that if you had to really turn it off, to turn it off from the toggle switch because there is some back pressure. So the easiest way to stop everything is just to lower the arms, which will lower it and take all the pressure off. So just to continue with getting the samples through. You notice I can adjust the toggle switch if I wanted to make it go quicker. And that would be the first step of putting it through on the regulated side. To demonstrate the speed of the dry or the high flow adjustment, and put some more fluid to the cartridges. Make sure that we're adjusted. Again, push it back into the proper position, raise the system. Now turning the toggle switch to the full flow, you'll see that you get a faster flow, and you'll use that in your dry steps or in any type of situation where you need a higher pressure. Once now your sample is extracted from the cartridges, we would remove this and then use a collection rack. This particular collection rack has been set up to collect 12 to 13 millimeter tubes. There's also a collection rack that can collect 16 millimeter tubes, and it's also adjustable by height. So 12 by 75, 16 by 100, any tube of any height up to 150 millimeters can be used. Actually can also be used if it's adjusted properly to collect it directly into autosampler vials, but primarily 12 by 75 or 16 by 100s are what's used. In ordering the positive pressure manifold, you would just ask for which type of collection tubes you would be using. So at this point, I have it set up for 12 by 75s. It's the exact same pin structure as it is on the waste rack. Put it on the arms, slide it back. Same positions, but in this case, I'm going to use the same solvent, just as a demonstration for collection. Make sure we're on off. And in this case with the elution, I would recommend just using the regulated flow. So I'm still set at roughly 20 psi. My switch is on, so I'm still getting gas in the second position. Now I can start collecting my eluent into my vials. I'm adjusting this just to show that it can be done at any time during the process. Lower the samples, and now your extraction is complete. Obviously, there's more steps in certain extractions, but using the manifold, obviously, you're going to be able to get a more uniform flow. You're going to be able to do up to 48 samples at any given time without giving up any of the issues, any of the flow problems that you might have with vacuum manifolds where you're constantly adjusting stopcocks. But most importantly, you keep it in a small footprint, and it's very simple operation to use.